The Toronto Raptors just swerved the entire fan base. As the back half of this year, we've been witnessing young players really show out and impress Raptors fans with their intensity and how they've been exceeding expectations. And of course, AJ Lawson was rewarded for the strong performances he put in the back half of this year, but the Raptors went with a swerve and ended up making another multi-year signing to a guy that hadn't been on the roster for a big chunk of this back half of the season. So we're going to break down what the Toronto Raptors just did, how it impacts the flexibility in the roster moving forward into next year, and more importantly, what we can expect from the bench mob going into next season. So we'll discuss that, including a little breakdown on the Mavericks game last night in this video. But before we dive into that, folks, we're getting a few new viewers back. So essentially 55% of our viewers are subscribed to the channel. 44% have not. Over the past month or so, that number was in the 30s. So we're seeing more and more people be interested in Raptors content, checking stuff out. So if you are a part of the 44% and haven't hit the subscribe button just yet and are interested in daily Toronto Raptors coverage, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button because we're going to give it to you all as we inch closer to the offseason, as Masai Ujiri puts together all the pieces as we make our triumphant return to hopefully the postseason next year. So lots of stuff to break down in this video. As the Raptors, they made another signing as we expected, but it was a surprise to a lot of Raptors fans. Essentially, news came out that Colin Castleton is leaving the Philadelphia 76ers for a standard deal with the Toronto Raptors. So Blake Murphy gave some deeper insight in terms of what's going on. Essentially, Castleton will be back on the same deal as AJ Lawson, the final game of the season and next year. But the 2025-2026 is fully non-guaranteed. So Lawson and Castleton will get the nod over Swider and Orlando Robinson for staying in the summer development program and early camp competition. So this is very, very interesting because if you're not familiar with Colin Castleton, he was on the team for a stretch this season. He's a big man, and he is a pretty effective. He impressed a lot of people. Now, of course, the more memorable guy this season has been Orlando Robinson because he has been on the team longer and had some more lucrative performances for the team, but Castleton did certainly impress. I was surprised that they didn't bring him back on his 10-day contracts, went with Cole Swider and stuff, but they just wanted to look at all these different people, and we can take a look at his stats over the course of the season. Nothing overwhelming, but 4.5 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, and shooting 12% from the three-point line, which we'll discuss. At 6'11", 24 years old, still a young guy at the big man position that has a lot of upside out there in the NBA. And there are a lot of pros and cons in terms of him as an actual basketball player. So he has a really nice touch around the basket. He's efficient. And comparison to Orlando Robinson, I think he looks, just from the eye test, smoother finishing in the paint. You get less of those ugly, weird hook shots that we sometimes saw from Orlando Robinson. He's a really effective rebounder. He had some monster rebounding games in limited minutes for this Raptors team. He's also a sneaky good passer. If we take a look at his stats, right, as we just brought up, 1.1 assists per game, but in the G League, he was averaging around 3 assists. So he's a sneaky good facilitator out there at that center position. Again, that 1.1 is in limited minutes, and he provides solid rim protection and defense without fouling. So those are things that you look for out there in a big man as a rim protector. Of course, he's not the most overwhelming athlete, but in the same vein, Jakob Poeltl is a really effective rim protector. It's from mobile, like out there in the paint, just good instincts, length, not getting pushed off of position. Castleton did impress in a lot of areas, but of course he was not perfect in these games and isn't the perfect basketball player, or else he wouldn't be available for this type of contract. But he's not extremely mobile or bouncy out there at the big man spot. 6'11", sometimes in pick and rolls, those guys get switched onto and things get messy. He's also not a proven floor spacer, as we saw 12% from behind the three-point line this season. So he's integrating that to his game. He's not completely hopeless from improving that three-point shot out there, developing in that area, but not a proven three-point. Like, we shouldn't come in and expect him to be taking a step forward. Now, Orlando Robinson was in the same boat, and in his last 15 games, he was shooting over 40%, I believe, from the three-point line. So things can improve, but he hasn't even shown that level of improvement in the same way his competitor was for the spot in Orlando Robinson, and extremely small sample size at the NBA level performance. So he's been very effective in the G League, and we can take a look at all the different stats and things like that because he's got some different stuff with these different teams, and really effective rebounder, but it's limited sample size, right? 16 games out there in the 23-24 campaign, and only 25 games out there in this year with multiple different teams. So that's what's going on with Castleton. A very interesting piece. I'm not rotted that Orlando Robinson didn't get the nod. I'm just a bit surprised because, again, we've taken a look at his stats and what he's been able to provide. 7 points per game versus the 5. Different minutes, different sample sizes, different games. But the 3-point shooting is something that really impressed me from Orlando Robinson. It's a wash in terms of the kind of their height and length and stuff like that. But basically, I was surprised because Orlando Robinson got the edge on him in regards to that final roster spot. Like Castleton was waived, and then Robinson got the minutes, and then of course now in terms of the summer looks and that it's Castleton. Now there could be some things on the go behind the scenes, and it's not a surefire thing that he will be on the roster for the entire next year. The Raptors do have 2 draft picks coming in, this year's NBA draft at very reasonable positions. Like of course the 7th pick will not get, it will guaranteed be on the roster. 39th. The way the Toronto Raptors draft should expect it to be in the roster as well. So that's 2 roster spots that are going to be more competition, for this Raptors team next season. We'll see what happens with free agents like Chris Boucher, Garrett Temple, in terms of other roster spots out there on the team. But you also have the factor in of the Toronto Raptors wanting to compete next season to be a player out there on the free agent market. So it's not a guaranteed surefire thing that Castleton, AJ Lawson, these types of players will be out there in the mix, but they do have their rights. They do have the opportunity now to look at these guys over the course of the season and see where things go from there. So, surprising move, I would say. I would have predicted it would have been Orlando Robinson out there at that center spot to get that position, the big man position. But Castleton ended up getting the wave, and I'm excited to see how he develops. I'm excited to hear the developments over the course of the offseason in terms of his potential impact out there on the team. But that's not the only thing we're talking about in the game, as this has Raptors fans fired up, as the team did take an L to the Dallas Mavericks last night, and it wasn't that, in terms of the box score, in terms of everything like that, it wasn't the most exciting game by any stretch of the imagination, but there was one thing that certainly got a lot of Raptors fans fired up, and it was the performance of our guy, Ochai Agbaji. If you can get that stat up there. 24 points for Ochai Agbaji, 6 of 7 from the 3-point line, 9 of 12 from the field. Of course, always playing solid defense, 9 rebounds, 3 steals in tonight's game, really effective on the offensive and defensive end, and Ochai Agbaji, it's a player coming into this year. We weren't sure about his future in, dare I say, the NBA, with how poorly he was shooting in the back half of last season. So he had a hot start to this year, and then the back half of this season, it feels like there's been a lot of other development projects that the Raptors have been focused on. But Ochai has been very, very good. He's been very, very good this season. Has been very, very effective, and I like in the back half of this year, Ochai had a big booming game, because it feels like he's been just overlooked by a lot of Raptors fans just now how the season's been going, because Ochai Agbaji's the perfect type of player you want on a winning team. On these types of rosters where he's expected to carry an offensive load or have an impact in those types of ways, that's not his best usage. So it's been tough to really grade Ochai Agbaji and the impact that he can have out there on these games, but I don't know. I like that he did have an explosive game, because frankly, I think he's going to be a crucial piece to this team's, an X factor, if you will, in terms of our ability to get back into the Eastern Conference playoff picture next season. Scottie Barnes also had a pretty solid game. Not super efficient, didn't have the free throw shooting is brutal from Scottie right now, 2 of 8 from the free throw line, but 26 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. A good game for Scottie, which you'd like to see. But other than that, no great performances. Jamal Shead, the Shed head's a little bit sad out here in this game tonight. Not the most effective game for Jamal Shead in terms of efficiency. Brought the energy in the defense end, which is always good, but that is what it is. Battle hit 3 threes, but wasn't effective in a lot of other areas. I played some defense and stuff. Jonathan Mobo, you want his touch to improve around the basket, but 8, 8, and 8, you can't really complain about that. AJ Lawson off the bench, showing some intensity, some fire out there, the rebounding position, but again, last night was not an efficient night for this entire team. And Garrett Temple had 12 points as well. 0-5 from the 3-point line from the vet, but got some buckets around the basket, 33 minutes. Surprised no Chris Boucher. We'll be talking about Chris Boucher a ton over the offseason, so I haven't dove too much into that story the back half of this year, but surprised that when you're running 7 deep, Omar Rui got some minutes in this game, but surprised that they didn't give Chris Boucher some burn. But that is what it is. I'm not stressed about these wins losses at the back half of the season. Let me know what you guys think about this. It's always positive to see at least one guy have a solid performance. But again, hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss a single thing with Raptors coverage. I'm signing out. Cheers.